Donald Trump has pledged to bring more water to drought-stricken California from Canada.
Millions of gallons of water pouring down from the north with the snow caps in Canada and all pouring down. And they have essentially a very large
The most powerful
faucet.
country in the world is running out of water. Lakes are drying up, rivers are disappearing, farms are dying, and right next door, their best friend has more water than anyone could dream of. So America asks for help, and Canada says no. This isn't a movie, this is happening right now. You're about to discover how water turned two best friends into enemies, how a simple request became a threat, and how the next few months might decide who gets to drink and who goes thirsty. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and smash the like. Trust me, you're gonna wanna follow this story. What's happening between Canada and America over water is just getting started. Part 1. When Trump asked for water, January 15th, 2025. Donald Trump is in Phoenix, Arizona. The sun is beating down, and Trump starts talking about something nobody expected: water. He tells the crowd, Canada has millions of gallons of water pouring down from the north, all that snow melting from their mountains. It's like a giant faucet up there. A faucet. He called Canada's water a faucet. Now, at first, this didn't seem like a big deal, but America really is running out of water. The Colorado River used to be massive. Now it's so low you can walk across parts of it. Lake Mead is so empty you can see old buildings that used to be underwater. In California, farmers can't water all their crops anymore. They have to choose. Cities like Phoenix are building expensive water systems because local water is gone, and every year it gets worse. So when Trump looked north at Canada and saw all that water, he thought he had the answer. Canada has about 20% of all the fresh water on planet Earth. They have massive lakes, rivers that never stop flowing, more water than they could use in 100 years. From Trump's point of view, this made perfect sense. America needs water. Canada has extra. Why not share? He said it again on February 3rd. This time he was even more direct. Arizona, Nevada, California, they're heading toward a crisis. We need to be smart about this. Canada has water they're not even using. But in Canada, people weren't thinking, oh, America needs help. They were thinking, oh no, here we go again. Because this isn't the first time America has wanted Canada's water. Back in the 1950s and 60s, American engineers created NWAPA, North American Water and Power Alliance. They wanted to build 240 dams in Canada, over 100 water channels, and miles of pipes to move Canadian water to the US, and Mexico Canadians said no, and they've been saying no ever since. So when Trump started talking about Canada's water like it was his to take, alarm bells started ringing across Canada. And then Canada's leader, Mark Carney, did something that shocked everyone. He didn't give a polite, let's talk about it response. He went straight to the cameras and said, no, Canada's water is not for sale. It will never be for sale. This is not up for discussion. That's when America realized their closest friend just slammed the door in their face. And that's where things got really interesting. Part 2. Why Canada said no way. Why did Canada react so strongly? To understand that, you need to know who Mark Carney is. Before becoming Canada's Prime Minister, Carney ran the Bank of Canada, then the Bank of England. He knows money, power, and what happens when small countries depend on big countries for survival. Carney looked at Trump's giant faucet idea and saw a trap. Imagine Canada agrees to send water to America, just a little at first. America builds pipes and systems. Their farms and cities depend on that Canadian water. Then 5 years later, Canada realizes their own lakes are lower than expected. Their rivers are drying faster. They need the water themselves, but now they can't stop. Because if they stop, American cities go dry, American farms die, and America says, you made us depend on this. You can't just turn it off. That's the trap Carney saw. Once you start, you can't stop. And America is way more powerful than Canada. Once Canada becomes America's water supplier, America controls the relationship. Carney also warned about climate change. People think Canada has unlimited water, but that's not true. Glaciers are melting faster than expected. Droughts are hitting parts of Canada that never had them before. In 2024, 64% of Canada faced drought conditions. British Columbia and Alberta dealt with major forest fires. The Wall Street Journal said Canada's lakes and rivers are drying up. So when Carney says Canada needs every drop, he's not exaggerating. Canada might face its own water crisis in 20 or 30 years. And if Canada is already selling water to America by then, they're stuck. They can't take it back. Carney also said water is part of what makes Canada Canada. It's part of our land, our identity. Once we start treating it like oil or wheat, We lose something we can never get back. That word, sovereignty, means being in control of your own country, making your own decisions. And for Canada, protecting water means protecting independence. But here's the problem. America isn't just asking politely anymore. They're starting to use words like national security. And when America calls something a national security issue, they don't take no for an answer. So the question becomes, how long can Canada keep saying no? Part 3. America's desperation grows. Let's talk about what's really happening in America. This isn't about inconvenience. It's about survival. The American West is dying of thirst. The Colorado River provides water for 40 million people across 7 states. But the river is at its lowest level in 200 years. Lake Mead and Lake Powell are so low that experts say they could become dead pools within years. That means the water drops so far that nothing can flow out. And if that happens, Las Vegas, Phoenix, and parts of Los Angeles lose their water supply. California grows a huge chunk of America's food, but farmers there are shutting down fields because there's no water. Families who farmed for generations are watching their land turn to dust. And it's not just the West. Texas faces droughts. Midwest rivers are drying up. This is a national crisis. So when Trump talks about Canada's water, millions of Americans think, why wouldn't they help us? They have so much and we need it so badly. American politicians are starting to ask the same question. Why should Canada sit on all that water while American cities are rationing? Some American voices are now saying that Canada has a moral responsibility to share, that being neighbors means helping each other, and if Canada won't help, maybe they're not really good allies after all. That kind of talk is dangerous, because it's not about asking anymore. It's about blaming. Trump hasn't stopped pushing. He's mentioned water in multiple speeches. He's called Canada's refusal selfish, and he's suggested that trade deals need to be re-examined if Canada won't cooperate. That's code for, if you don't give us water, we'll hurt your economy. And that threat is real. Canada depends heavily on American trade. About 75% of Canadian exports go to the United States. If Trump puts tariffs on Canadian goods, Canada's economy collapses. So Canada faces a choice: protect their water and risk economic punishment, or give in and risk losing control of their most important resource. American engineers are already drawing up plans, massive pipeline networks to move water from Canada's northern rivers down to California and Arizona. These aren't just ideas, these are detailed blueprints. The cost would be enormous, hundreds of billions, but America is starting to see that as worth it. From America's perspective, this is just smart problem solving. They have a crisis. Their neighbor has the solution. Why complicate it? But from Canada's perspective, these plans look like something else: losing control over their own country. And here's what makes this even more tense. America is getting more desperate every month. Every year that passes, the water crisis gets worse, and desperate countries do desperate things. So the real question isn't, will America ask again? It's, what will America do when asking doesn't work? Part 4. The pressure keeps building. You're probably wondering, can't they just work something out? Isn't there middle ground? Here's the problem, there really isn't. Canada's position, water is not for sale. Not now, not ever. America's position, we're running out of options. You're our neighbor, you have to help. Both sides are right, that's what makes this dangerous. Let's look at what's happening behind the scenes. In February 2025, something strange happened. The United States paused negotiations on the Columbia River Treaty. This 60-year-old agreement between Canada and the US is about sharing water from the Columbia River. They didn't cancel the talks, just paused them. The official reason? The current administration is reviewing its international engagements. But experts know what that means. Trump's team is rethinking which water belongs to whom. They're looking at every agreement, every treaty, every river that crosses the border. And they're asking, how can we get more? Carney saw this coming. That's why he moved fast to make Canada's position clear. He knew that once America starts reviewing treaties, they might try changing the rules. Carney also knows how trade pressure works, and Trump is already using it. Trump has threatened 25% tariffs on Canadian goods. He's called Canada the 51st state multiple times. He's even suggested that Canada should just become part of America because it makes more sense. Now, Trump says a lot of wild things, but water experts in Canada aren't laughing. They're worried. Because behind the jokes and the threats, there's a real strategy. Make Canada feel like they have no choice but to cooperate. Here's where it gets even more complicated. Canada is about to have a new prime minister. Justin Trudeau announced he's stepping down. Elections are coming, and the leading candidate to replace him is Pierre Poilievre, a conservative who hasn't said much about the water issue. Water activist Maud Barlow, who helped make water a human right at the United Nations, is worried. She says Canadian people don't want to export water. Left wing, right wing, nobody wants it, but I'm not sure the politicians and business leaders will stand strong if America threatens our economy. That's the fear, that Canada's next government might cave under pressure. American companies are already getting involved too. They see water as the next big business opportunity. If Canada starts exporting water, there's billions of dollars to be made, and corporate lobbying is powerful. So now you have a desperate America with growing water needs, a Trump administration willing to use economic threats, Canadian business leaders who might see water exports as profitable, a new Canadian government that hasn't made its position clear yet. All the pieces are in place for Canada to fold. But there's one thing stopping that from happening: the Canadian people. Polls show that 80-90% of Canadians are against water exports. It's one of the few things almost everyone agrees on: conservative voters and liberal voters, young people and old people, city folks and farmers. They all say the same thing: Canada's water is not for sale. Yeah. So any Canadian politician who tries to make a water deal with America will face massive backlash at home. Their career would be over. That's Canada's protection right now. Not treaties, not laws, the people. But how long can public opinion hold against economic pressure? That's what we're about to find out. Part 5, what happens next? So where does this leave us? We've got two countries that have been best friends for over 200 years. They share the longest peaceful border in the world. They're each other's biggest trading partners. Their militaries work together. Their people travel back and forth freely, but now they're facing off over water, and neither side is backing down. Here's what could happen next. Scenario 1. Canada holds firm. Canada keeps saying no. They pass stronger laws protecting their water. Yikes. No, they invest billions in conservation at home. They make it legally impossible to export water. Trump gets angry. He puts tariffs on Canadian goods. Canada's economy takes a hit, but Canadians accept it because they believe protecting water is worth the cost. Over time, America has to find other solutions: desalination plants, better conservation, moving people away from water-scarce areas. It's painful and expensive, but they have no choice. The US-Canada relationship is damaged, but survives. Scenario 2, Canada makes a deal. Pressure builds. Trump threatens more tariffs. Canadian businesses push for a compromise. A new Canadian government decides to negotiate. They agree to a limited water export program, just enough to help America's crisis. Strict rules, environmental protections. Canada keeps control, or so they think. But once the pipes are built and American cities depend on that water, Canada loses leverage. America asks for more, then more. The limited program becomes permanent, and 20 years later, Canada is facing its own water shortage but can't stop exporting because America has become dependent. Scenario 3. Things get ugly. This is the scenario nobody wants to talk about, but everyone's thinking about. America's water crisis reaches a breaking point. Cities can't function. Food production collapses. Millions of people face rationing. Trump declares it a national emergency. He says Canada's refusal to help is threatening American national security. And when America declares something a national security threat, they act. Maybe it's economic warfare, crushing tariffs, trade blockades. Maybe it's political interference, supporting Canadian politicians who favor water exports. Or maybe, and this is the nightmare scenario, it's something more direct. America has overthrown governments before when resources were at stake. Is it likely? Probably not. But when we're talking about water, the resource humans absolutely cannot live without, nothing is off the table. The reality we're facing. Here's the truth. Water is becoming the most valuable resource on Earth. More valuable than oil. More valuable than gold. Because you can live without oil. You can't live without water. And climate change is making water scarce in more places every year. What's happening between Canada and America right now is just the beginning. This same fight is going to play out around the world. Countries with water versus countries without it. Neighbors who used to be friends becoming rivals. The question that Canada and America are trying to answer is one that every nation will face soon. In a world running out of water, do countries with abundance have an obligation to share? Or does every country have the right to protect its own resources first, even if neighbors are suffering? Canada says, sovereignty means protecting what's yours. You can't give away your future to solve someone else's crisis today. America says, when your neighbor is drowning and you have a lifeboat, you don't get to just watch them drown. Both arguments make sense, and that's exactly why this is so dangerous. Right now, Mark Carney is standing firm. Canada's water is not for sale, but Trump is not backing down either. America's need is not going away, and somewhere between those two positions, the future of North America is being decided. We're watching two countries discover that sometimes even the best of friends can't agree on the most basic question of all. Who owns the water, and who gets to decide what happens to it? One thing is certain, this story is far from over. In fact, it's just getting started. The next part of the Canada-America water crisis is being written right now, and whatever happens will change both countries forever. So make sure you're subscribed and following this channel, because when the next big development breaks, you're going to want to hear about it immediately. The fight for water has begun, and the whole world is watching to see how it ends.